Hey witches, it's Faye the Fiend, and today we are talking about crystal grids. Um, so a crystal grid, we're just gonna go in, I'm just gonna go straight into it. Um, if you're unfamiliar, it's basically when you put your crystals in the shape of something, typically, a grid. Shocker. I don't think that it has to be a grid though, in my personal opinion. Some might disagree. But yeah, so it's you put your crystals in a shape that is going to strengthen your intention. Um and it's supposed to help elevate the energy, and we will go into that. So there's 4 steps that are mandatory, and then there's 5 steps that are optional. So I'm going to go into the mandatory ones. But again, I don't know. I get so like I feel weird saying mandatory. You can do whatever the fuck you want, honestly. But the first basic step is to set an intention, right? You don't want it to be random crystals. You want to make sure the crystals that you pick are going to um, help your intention. So pick an intention. It can be self love, it can be focus, whatever. The second thing you're gonna need is a shape. If you don't want to pick a shape, you can just intuitively put the crystals together. Everything technically has shapes, right? That's kind of like the sacred geometry thing. Like it's everywhere you look, you can't really escape it. So I feel like even if you were to have nothing and intuitively put crystals down, at the end of the day, you're still gonna have a shape whether you realize it or not. So, um, yeah, but you can pick your shape or pick that you're gonna do it intuitively. It doesn't matter. Your grid. It could be sacred geometry. It could be like just the shape of a heart. It could be a smiley face. Who's gonna stop you? Um, we do the third step is to pick a crystal that's going to sit in the middle of your grid. It's kind of going to be the focus point. Um, so, like for example, you could have the smoky quartz here in the middle, and then have all these other crystals to kind of sit around it. You could also, sorry, some people say that that has to be the biggest crystal. That you wouldn't want to have like something bigger on the edge. I don't know. Again, like there aren't really any rules here, but yeah, that might be something you want to consider. If you have these big pieces on the end, and then your center crystal's a small one, that might bother you or mess with whatever shapes you have going on. I don't really care. The fourth step is to pick other crystals, obviously, other than the one that's sitting in the center. And that's it. That's how you make a crystal grid. The optional things, there are 5 of them. So the first one, like you can see with this one, there's a little point here. It's kind of like flat at the bottom. So if you had an intention to draw the energy inward towards yourself or towards your home or whatever, you would make the point direct. You would direct the point of the crystal towards the centerpiece. If you're trying to take the energy out, or like let's say you had a crystal grid for banishment, you could make the crystals of your grid point outward. I'm sorry. um, I'm trying to drink coffee so I can be aware. It's late and I'm tired, but whatever, please bear with me. So the second option, let me just kind of set these up as an example. All right, let's see, I have this, is to have a wand. I personally am not fond of wands in general, but there are a lot of people who say you take a crystal wand and you kind of connect all the crystals together. I'm sure if you didn't have a crystal wand, you could do it with a regular wand. I'm really not big on wands, but that is an optional step that you can take if you want to kind of just sit and like trace over it and kind of like set your intention that way. Um, the third step that's optional is the shape and the material of the shape. So right now we do have a very convoluted I forget what this is called. It might be the flower of life. I'm not really too big on geometry. It's not really relevant to me, but it might be to you. And, if that has its own meaning, that could further your intention. It is on a crystal. Um, that's not necessary. You could print it out on paper, you could draw it out. If you want it to be a crystal grid on this, you totally could. Like, who's gonna stop you is really my question. And then you have I've never messed around with crystal grids on images like this. I suppose you could. I mean, who's gonna stop you? That's really my question. I don't I don't know. I don't like putting down rules for people. I'm like, do what you want. Who's gonna stop you? Like, and it could work. Who's to say that I couldn't? Um. Okay, so we have the fifth. No, I'm sorry, the fourth optional step, which is what you do with the grid afterwards. So you could set up a grid, meditate with it, take it down. You could leave it for the day to say, this is the intention I'm setting for today, and then take it down at the end of the night. You could, have one for peace in the home and then just kind of leave it there as a standing piece, um, to constantly bring in peace to your home. It really doesn't matter. You could have it forever. You can take it down after the intention has been kind of set and you've spent time with it. And then the fifth optional piece is just where you put your crystals. So there's no rules. It's not like if you have a clear quartz, it has to go in the center. If you have, a smoky quartz, it has to be at the bottom. Like, it doesn't matter. And also here in the shape, right, there's people who do like crystals every time a point touches, right? There's some people who do it only, let's say you wanted to make a peace sign with it, right? Then you would draw the crystals down this way. There's really no rules. So I hope that was kind of helpful. I'm going to go over the crystal grid that I'm about to make. And my intention is I'm about to do a meditation with I'm just gonna check in on my shadow, see how she's doing. So I kind of wanted protections for my meditation. I feel like when I meditate and I open myself up, sometimes I end up receiving messages all over the place, and it's like I need protection so I'm not receiving all this extra information. It's like I want to talk to my shadow, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna receive messages from other places because it can be very chaotic. So we're gonna have crystals for protection, um, and also crystals for self-reflection. So I'm kind of gonna go into that. So the first one we have is black tourmaline, which is good for protection, but also for transmuting energy. So if I do find that there is something, unsettling, hoping to be able to integrate that or to, find ways to release that energy. Um, yeah, or transmute it. We have the Apache Tears. These guys are for emotional healing. They protect you and they ground you. So it's good to be grounded, especially if you're gonna touch something potentially traumatic. You want to make sure you're well and grounded. Um, but just in general, like, it's good to ground when you're meditating because you don't want to lose your mind off in the astral over there. Um, they're also for clarity and insight and forgiveness. So I found that interesting. Because sometimes part of our shadow, I don't have to get into that, but basically, when you are doing self reflection about your past or things that, have hurt you or you have hurt others, forgiveness is a good um, intention to draw in for yourself and for other people. Sorry if I sound louder. The microphone is closer to me. It was rubbing up against a piece of my shirt and I don't want it to mess with the audio. If it did, I'm so sorry. I'm not re recording this. So, Yeah. And then we do have smoky quartz for grounding protection. It also dispels stress. That was important to me. Like if I'm meditating and it's very a stressful situation or a stressful memory, kind of to like, let's get to the bottom of this. You know, don't get. Sometimes when you meditate and you see something stressful, you might like snap out of the meditation. I don't want to do that. So it's kind of like setting the intention of like, hey, if something is stressful, like help me dispel the stress so I can focus. Um, we have clear quartz because she's that girl. She's whatever you want to set the intention for. So I'm gonna. It can also work as like an amplifier, right, to help strengthen the energy you already have going on. I'm kind of gonna, That's funny. I'm gonna try and. I'll just keep these to myself. Is basically what I'm saying. We have another smoky quartz. Missed her. And then another smoky quartz. Wow. Is this really smoky? Wow. She's dark. Okay. And then we have obsidian. So some people say that obsidian is like for protection or whatever. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to those because obsidian is very sacred in like Aztec mythology. Um, and so one of the ways in which it is brought up, there's a mythology of a god within the Aztec pantheon who holds up an obsidian mirror to the enemies. And basically, what happens in the mythology is that when he holds up that mirror, the enemy sees the darkest parts of themselves and they're so horrified by what they see that they're defeated. And so I brought in obsidian to help show me, you know, some of those parts that I might not want to um, look at. And so for that reason, it's going in the center. Um, yeah, and I'm just kind of gonna feel this out. I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm not going to. Um, I almost don't even want to talk. I'm just gonna film myself, kind of like B-rolling. Maybe I'll put some music over it, and we'll see how it goes. And here she is, my crystal grid. Towards the end there, it felt very natural to kind of make it a cross shape. There are a lot of, sorry, I'm trying to zoom in so you guys can see all the little smoky quartz crystals. I kind of tried to align. We have the obsidian in the center because I'm trying to face myself. Yeah. And then luckily I had a fourth smoky quartz heart so I can kind of even out the shape of it. And like I was saying, you can get the points of the crystals to point inward. Um, yeah, trying to get like clear quartz going. You know, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense to you. But yes, you can have it as simple or as convoluted as you want. But this is mine, and now I'm going to go meditate, check in with my shadow. Let me, you know, if you can, I wish there was like TikTok where you can like post photos in the comments because I would totally love to see everybody else's crystal grids. But let me know if you found this video helpful and if you made any grids and for what. I think that would be cool. As always, I hope you enjoyed and that you learned something. See you on the other side.